40 years ago, two Appleton elementary music teachers and their department supervisor joined together to create a brand new choir, a choir of boys. In the spring of 1979, James Hikes and Frank Ripple, along with manager Austin Boychoir, presented this new choir to our community in their very first concert. And thus was born a tradition that continues today, the Appleton Boychoir. Over the years, this small choir of children from just a few elementary schools grew to 2, to 3, and then even 4 youth choirs, with boys from across the Fox River Valley and from some 60 primary and middle school programs. In 1983, a young teacher who had been volunteering with the choir was hired to join the conducting team. For some 20 years, Kevin Meidel, Frank Ripple, and James Hikes led the Appleton Boychoir through concerts, tours, camps, and more. In the mid-1990s, the Appleton Boychoir Master Singers was formed to provide an opportunity for the choir to perform more authentic major works with an ensemble of men and boys. Guest conductors such as Axel Timer and Richard Webster auditioned and led the group until Austin Boychoir took the podium in the late 1990s. Through the decades, the Appleton Boychoir has been fortunate to have an excellent staff of conductors, voice coaches, performance specialists, choreographers, collaborative pianists, managers, executive directors, and others, all with one intent, to give each boy the very best musical experience possible. With that, the boys have performed major works with such ensembles as the Lawrence University Symphony Orchestra, the Lawrence University Wind Ensemble, the Fox Valley Symphony Orchestra and Youth Orchestra, the Wisconsin Symphonic Winds, the Palmyra Opera Company, the White Heron Chorale, and many others. They have worked with major conductors and musical artists such as James Litton, Jeffrey Ward, Daniel Ryan, Gunther Schuller, Carl Erickson, Henry Leck, Adrian Broyles, and Sir David Wilcox, just to name a few. They have commissioned works from notable composers including Alice Parker, James Chadois, Barbara Wolfman, Julie Gardner-Bray, Steve Heitzig, Maury Laws, James Smith, Malcolm Douglas, Stacy Gibbs, Kevin Dobie, Keith Hampton, and many others. The Appleton Boychoir has been honored to host and sponsor dozens of musical ensembles over the years, including international choirs such as the Male Academic Chorus of Estonia, the Konstanz Youth Wind Orchestra from Germany, the Prague Philharmonic Children's Choir, Yitro, Rubenek, and Campanella from the Czech Republic, the Dutch ensemble Quink, the Sibelius High School Chamber Choir from Finland, Mexico's Niños Cantores de Escuela de Música, Angelica and Jubilate from Hungary, the Zagreb, Croatia Boy Choir, and the St. Florian Boys Choir from Austria. Domestic groups hosted include the St. Olaf Choir, Cantus, the Singing Statesmen of Eau Claire, the Metropolitan Boy Choir, the American Boy Choir, Trinity Irish Dancers, the Raleigh Boy Choir, the Phoenix Boys Choir, the Central Minnesota Boy Choir, One World Dance and Drum, and others. On the professional stage, the boys have performed for multiple conferences and conventions of the American Choral Directors Association, the American Guild of Organists, the International Collegiate Men's Choir Association, the Music Educators Association, the Midwest Kodai Music Educators Association, among others. Their concerts have explored the music of master composers to the popular music of our day. They have performed operas and oratorios, costumed and stage works from the Broadway repertoire, to unique concert settings of contemporary music, and a festival of 9 lessons and carols, which has become a community tradition that is broadcast on television annually to hundreds of thousands of people in Northeast Wisconsin. They have performed in some of the world's great concert halls, churches, and historic buildings, such as the Rudolfinum in Prague, the Forbidden City Concert Hall in Beijing, China, Uncle Tom's Hall in Soweto, South Africa, the Teatro Municipal in Cusco, Peru, and here in America, amazing concert venues such as Orchestra Hall in Minneapolis and the historic Sheldon Theater in St. Louis. Their national tours have placed them on concert stages from Washington, D.C., Boston, and New York City to San Antonio, Memphis, Indianapolis, Colorado Springs, and more. And of course, the Appleton Boychoir has traveled the globe as musical ambassadors, delivering a message of friendship and goodwill. Their very first mission was to represent our city and country to Communist Russia during the Cold War era, and continued later as guests to our sister city in Kanoji, Japan. But whether on the Great Wall of China, safari in Africa, whale watching in Iceland, floating the canals in the Netherlands, viewing the ancient ruins of Machu Picchu in Peru, or the Popocatépetl in Mexico, the boys have always shared their message of peace and friendship through their music. Perhaps one of the most significant parts of the Boychoir experience is their summer camp. In the beginning, it was at Ripon College, where they spent 2 summers as resident choir under the baton of Sir David Wilcox, and then briefly to Green Bay YMCA Camp Unalaya in Mountain, Wisconsin, before moving to Camp Friedenswald, which would become their summer home for over 2 decades. Located in the swamps of Cassopolis, Michigan, and on the shores of Lake Shavehead, Friedenswald gave boys experiences that would never be forgotten, including swamp hikes, the wall, survival, and of course, campfires down in Mosquito Hollow. In recent years, their summer program has moved to the beautiful Wonderland Camp in Camp Lake, Wisconsin, near Kenosha. 40 years ago, the Appleton Boychoir was born. Now decades have passed, and so have thousands of young men through their doors. Boys have continued on to become amazing adults, engineers, architects, politicians, and yes, even some to become professional musicians, singers, choir teachers, artistic directors of some of the world's most prominent music institutions. From singing barbershop with Dick Van Dyke and conducting the world-class Cor Leone in Vancouver, Canada, to performing with the illustrious Orchestra Sinfonica in Brazil, our boys, our men, have left a significant contribution to the world of music. 40 years of tradition, 40 years of music, one boy at a time, one great concert at a time. We celebrate tonight their past, but we also look to the next 40 years and can only imagine what exciting melodies are yet to be sung.